House Bill 740 that you have before you is a sales tax exemption for manufacturing. This bill is an attempt to address an issue that kind of started rearing its ugly head several years ago and was attempted to be dealt with through Senate Bill 30 in 2007, which included language that was considered at that time to be a broad exemption of energy or anything used or consumed in the process of manufacturing a product. And the purpose of that would be that for a manufacturer in the state of Missouri, when you were purchasing your raw materials or when you were purchasing the equipment used to make the product, especially with more modern day sophisticated equipment and industrial processes that are out there, and then also the maintenance and the upkeep and calibration of that equipment and processes that are used to make a product, that all of those capital investments and services would be sales tax free, because they are all used in the process of and part of the overhead of making that product, which ultimately is going to go to one day a retail sale and then sales tax applied. So what they were trying to address in Senate Bill 730 was a rising problem of what most obviously predominantly was believed in the legislature, a problem of double taxation, where you were charging sales tax for those raw products, those materials, those services, and all that, to then be used specifically to go into the fabrication of a product that would end up then going to a retail sale and then sales tax charged again. And historically, that's pretty much how that process used to work. But it just kind of started to arise, I guess, at some period in time, and then has kind of, since 2007 and the passage of Senate Bill 30, kind of bringing itself back into the forefront again. If you're familiar with that age-old game of a whack-a-mole, I think what we're going to do is once again whack the mole here and beat that one back down into the ground where it needs to be, and let's allow the manufacturers in the state of Missouri to take all of the cost and the investment they put into the development and bringing a product through the process of fabrication and to fruition and then to sale, to let the sales tax be collected when the product is sold, and not through every phase and step and facet of that process. So we've gone from language that was considered to be a broad exemption, but to take care of a rising problem, to one that then was in turn, again, now being strictly construed, therefore requiring us to delineate over and over and over again every last part of a process of fabrication, which we don't need to do. To now back to this bill, which I think now will cover the same original intent of Senate Bill 30 and make sure that we are not double taxing the manufacturers in the state of Missouri. One more point that I would like to bring up is that when you look at the fiscal note for this bill, it has the very familiar unknowns, but then you get down to the assumptions, and we're talking about some pretty astounding numbers. Well, those numbers are based on those assumptions, in my mind anyway, are based on the calculating of a tax that we would like, some I guess would like to collect, but historically hasn't ever been collected. So I don't see that there's going to be a $10 to $20 million loss to the state of Missouri. We might be standing in the way of moving to that level, but it's not going to be a loss. And if you would, and I don't know if I passed out copies of the fiscal note from the Senate bill from 2007, but the numbers are so widely, it's desperately different that it's, again, I just want to make a point that if you're looking at that fiscal note, just understand it's an assumption based on taxes that really have never been collected. So With that, let's see if I covered all the bases. What will be exempt will be electrical energy, gas, water, coal, energy sources, chemicals, machinery and equipment, materials, and the investments into that equipment to keep it running for that process. So.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Tracy King, and I'm here representing the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and we'd like to go on record in support of House Bill 740. Back in 2006, the Missouri Chamber began advocating for the manufacturing sales tax exemption. I actually came on board with the Chamber in 2007, and I can tell you it was a high priority of the Missouri Chamber. And with the leadership of the original bill sponsors, which was Senator Jason Crow and Representative Shannon Cooper, and also with the Economic Development Chair at the time, which was Representative Ron Richard, now Senator Ron Richard, we were able to get that legislation passed in 2007. And what that legislation did was it created new exemptions for manufacturers and expanded exemptions for manufacturers. So it exempted electricity and all other energy sources used in manufacturing a product. It also, machinery and equipment that had to be directly, the legislation said before, it had to be directly used to manufacture that product to be exempt. That expanded to anything used or consumed, which is exactly what's stated in statute, used or consumed, in order to be exempt. Also, raw materials and chemicals had to become a direct component of that widget or that product that you're making. And so the sales tax exemption was meant to expand that to anything used or consumed in manufacturing. And finally, it addressed research and development and producing a product had always been exempt, but in 2006, the U.S. Supreme Court decided that it didn't fall under our old manufacturing exemption. So we also included research and development. And we were able to, again, to get that passed. The administration at the time, Governor Blunt, embraced this manufacturing exemption as a way to actually level the playing field because many of our surrounding states already had this exemption, but also as a lift up to our struggling manufacturing industry. And so, in fact, we worked really close with the administration at the time, Trish Vincent, who was the Director of Revenue, and the department actually went out with us to 10 different locations around the state to help promote this exemption for our manufacturing industry. And at the time, it was told and sold to our manufacturing industry that this is a very broad sales tax exemption. Anything that you use or consume, and that's what the legislation states, in manufacturing a product is exempt. It doesn't have to be direct use, and it doesn't have to become a component part. Fast forward 4 years, I began getting calls from numerous members of the Missouri Chamber who called us and said, you know what, I just received an audit and been assessed 3 years back taxes and penalties and interest for things that I came to your seminar for and that you and the Department of Revenue said were exempt. So I began kind of investigating that issue. And what I found is that this exemption over time has been eroded through letter rulings, and also we just had a recent Supreme Court case that ruled in favor of the sales tax exemption. And just to give you an example, maintenance, repair parts, and other type of equipment in maintaining the equipment used in manufacturing was addressed in a letter ruling in 2007. That letter ruling has expired. It's only out there for 3 years. But at the end of 2008, we began seeing letter rulings that in turn were that we said that was exempt before is now saying that that's taxable. And in fact, the most recent letter ruling back in, I believe, August of 2010 has said that they won't even answer the question because they're saying it's being addressed in a current rulemaking procedure. There hasn't been any rules filed, so I'm assuming it's being discussed. Also, back in 2007, the Department of Revenue put out a guidance for manufacturing, and they included just 13 examples of what, well, they included 3 things that are not manufacturing to give a guidance on this issue, and then about 10 or so that were exempt. And the first thing that they said that were examples of manufacturing were making cabinets and countertops. The recent court case decision I just referred to was the B&B granite countertop, and they were assessed taxes on their product. They actually took it all the way to the Supreme Court and won. But that gives an example of how very narrow now the department is looking at this exemption. And we don't have, our small to medium-sized manufacturers don't have the resources to be able to take these things all the way to the Supreme Court. So many of them are just paying. And so, you know, we think that we need to clarify this sales tax exemption. I will tell you that I've met with the current Director of Revenue and the Governor's Office. And while this did not originate with their administration, it has come up, and we are currently where we're at now. And so we do need to clarify it. I don't, to be honest with you, I don't know how more broad we can say in statute that's anything used or consumed in manufacturing. But obviously that isn't getting the message out. So we need to look at clarifying this exemption. Otherwise, I think our manufacturers would say that it is a tax increase because they were sold on this exemption back in 2007 that these things are exempt, and they haven't been paying taxes, and they're being assessed taxes now on things that they were told. And nothing has changed in statute, nothing has changed in regulations. The letter rulings that have changed are only binding to those specific taxpayers for those specific set of facts. So I couldn't even use the letter ruling and go in and say, well, I'm exempt because you said so here. They're not binding to anyone else but that particular person and those particular set of facts. So we've got to do something, or else we will continue to see this erosion of this sales tax exemption. And I appreciate Representative Funderburg for filing this legislation and also addressing the fiscal note, because in assuming that it's going to cost us $10 million is the assumption that they're collecting $10 million of sales taxes that was exempted in 2007. And so I believe in that, you know, again, that we need to clarify this exemption. We have agreed to work with the current director of the Department of Revenue and the administration and try to clarify. They have some concerns with the language that we have. We'll work with them to put something together that maybe we can all agree with. But, you know, we believe that we need to move forward on this legislation. You know, and so we appreciate your support.
Thank you. Are there any questions for this witness? And we're getting short on time, so if we can kind of make our questions kind of brief. Go ahead, Representative Ellinger.
First of all, I'd like the name of the Supreme Court case, if you know it.
I do. I don't have
the
citation
citation
right here.
Or can you just supply it to me?
I'll supply it to the whole committee. Bring you a copy of it.
And secondly, how much do you think, we really don't know how much is being collected now, because you just indicated, well, the $10 million really isn't applying, but some people are paying. So there will be a tax loss. Is there any way to find out how much the loss could be estimated?
I guess you could ask the Department of Revenue how many audits they've gone out and assessed over the last couple of years, and how many businesses have just agreed to pay it because they can't afford to you know, appeal it and take it up. But we would say that this was actually exempt. So if whatever that amount is, we would say it would be a backdoor tax increase.